I get that everybody's hunting, but so are we. We're hunting. So we're not going to sit there and be hunted. We're going and hunting more. So, and we've got a head coach that demands that.
Well, we are back. It's season 2 here at Back 10 from All Out Studio, and we cannot wait to bring you the stories, the news, the views, the highs and the lows over the next 10 months from the Super League and beyond in 2026. But before we introduce our first guest of this brand new season, I need to introduce a new face to the All Out show here at Back 10. Sitting across from me in the co-host seat, welcome back, Paul Cookie Cook. How are you?
I'm good, Carl. Thank you, and thanks for having me. Real pleasure. Can't wait to get going. Promises to be a fabulous 2026.
Well, on the subject of one Hull icon, we're joined by another man who certainly fits that bill. He is the CEO of Hull Kingston Rovers, fresh from their treble-winning season, and it's great that Paul Lakin is taking time out in what is a very, very busy schedule over the next coming weeks to join us here to kick us off at Back 10. Paul, how are you?
Very good, and looking forward to the season.
Good stuff, good stuff. Well, look, we'll be digging into everything, of course, in 2025, and as the Robins aim to repeat all that in 2026. Before we jump in, last season, your support was fantastic, and we need more of that in 2026. So please like and subscribe. We are close to 10,000 subscriptions, and we really want to break through that barrier this season. So don't forget, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything across All Out Rugby League Back 10. Also, as well, in the comment section, we know and we love to hear from you every single week. Please swipe left. You'll reveal that hype button. You can hit that hype button up to 3 times per week. And again, that will just help us here at Back 10 reach further and wider audiences. Right then, let's get into the show. What a season 2025 was, Paul. And we probably should start from there, really. And look, I'm going to sort of say, can you talk us through it? But it wasn't just 2025. This has been bubbling for some time, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been work in progress for probably 4 years and really kicked on when Willie came on board 3 years ago. So, it's building blocks. I know it's an obvious thing to say, but it is building blocks. You can't build a culture overnight. I'm a big believer in that you need to be one club, and that means that everybody works towards the same goal. It's our sport isn't the type of sport where you can change the squad overnight. It's just there's just not a big enough player pool. So it takes 2 or 3 years to really work your squad the way you need it. But yeah, it's been a mentality that's grown and grown, and within that, confidence has grown and grown.
Well, they say, don't you? You have to lose finals or lose big games in order to win them, Cookie. And Hull KR, they certainly. Again, I keep talking about that journey that they were on. Challenge Cup final defeats, and previous to that, there was I think Wigan demolished you in the playoffs, if I remember back right.
They did.
So there was learns along the way, wasn't there? Really.
Well, I thought the 2023 final was a big turning point. I didn't think the club was good enough and the team that day was good enough to win that game. I thought Lee probably just shaded it. OKR came back into it late. But I do believe that certainly helped the club and the players with the mentality shift to 24 and then into what was a fabulous season in 25. Can you give us an insight into the change of mentality through that final loss and what Willie Peter said and what had gone on in that from that final to 2025?
Yeah, because we've been in 4 of the last 6 finals, and it's true. I mean, it's easy to say you need to lose one to win one, because clearly you just want to win them all. But the reality of it is I had seen a difference in the players and the mentality in terms of it's not new anymore. It's like it's no longer, it's a big game, but it's not like, oh wow, this is a big game. It's like, I know what a big game feels like. I know what, the crowd feels like. I know what the routine feels like going into Wembley. And I think that is a real factor really in terms of just settling players down, knowing what's ahead of them.
And I suppose then, Paul, just to jump in on that, was that the thought process in bringing Michael McAlorum and Jarrod Wirra-Hargreaves, those players who aren't afraid of the big stage and can be that calming reassurance to not only in games but also during training and building up to those games? Yeah,
because we thought, myself and Willie in particular, thought that there's been quite a lot of clubs. If you go back to 23, there's a lot of clubs that have got to a final and then haven't been there again. And I think the critical point for us was we need to knock again. We need to knock on that door again. And how are we going to do that? So by bringing in a couple of, fantastic senior pros that have been there and done it, and both got unbelievable trophy cabinets in their own right, then we thought that was just that extra, 5% that we needed.
So, we're on the eve of the season. Those players have left, retired. How do you go about making sure that this squad has the hunger and the ability to go again?
Well, first of all, on the leaders' side, then we've been running. Minnie's our captain, Batch is our vice captain. You've got senior players now like Jez, for example, who's just at a great England series, who's grown. I think that leadership group was already growing, but has grown to a point now where it was brilliant having Mickey and Jarrod, but not necessarily need them now. I think the leaders in their own right. But from what, everything within the club, I think there's a real newness about us too. We haven't been at the top of this sport for 10 years, 15 years. So it's not, dare I say it, anyone would dare get tired of such a thing, of being up there. But, we've got it all to prove again. Yeah. We're right at the beginning. We had an unbelievable year last year, but 5 years ago, we were bottom of the league. So there's a real reality there too that, we've created history for our club and our supporters, our fans. No one can take away from that, but we want to do so much more. I don't see anything in the squad other than hunger.
I think that's the real difficult thing now for OKR, is it goes from being hunting to hunted. Yep. The bullseye's on your chest where everybody's coming after you. The biggest game of the Super League season for York is Thursday night against Hull KR. The champions roll into town, and how can they manage that? Then the next week's Brisbane, the week after's Leeds, the week after's Huddersfield. They've got a real run of teams that are going to come after them. To keep the hunger and desire there is going to be one thing, but to keep the quality there is going to be the other. It's a squad game now. There's an extra couple of fixtures a year. If Hull KR are going to knock on the door of all three trophies again in 2026, then it's going to take a real effort. And I think that's a real difficult one now for Hull KR. It's going to be really interesting 26.
Well, that's my biggest concern for Hull KR in 2026. The fact that squad's been on that journey and they finally got all three trophies in the cabinet. It hasn't just happened overnight. Do you understand when people, may think that the squad might just pull back a little bit and get comfortable?
I understand from the outside. Our mentality from the inside, well, first of all, taking Paul's point, I get that everybody's hunting, but so are we. We're hunting. So we're not going to sit there and be hunted. Like we're going and hunting more. So, and we've got a head coach that demands that. And we've got, I think we still got very much a newness about our players. We unbelievable. We won the treble, but we haven't won trophy after trophy, year after year after year. And I think I don't see anything in our team other than as big a determination as it was a year ago, and we will go hunting. And
is that the goal then, Paul, to have a period of dominance in the Super League?
Yeah. Listen, every team in this league will be at it this year, I've no doubt. But for ourselves, it's like what we did last year, but how can we be better? So our mantra within the club, and that includes staff off the field, everybody, is be better. If everybody can be 2 or 3% better, then other teams have got to be better too, haven't they?
Do you think that's, you've just spoken about, and we've spoken about off camera, about the spine of the team, the 1, 6, 7, 9 and 13 in Captain Minchella, headed up by Willie Peters. I think that's going to be that they're going to be the biggest players for the club in 2026, because if they're at it, then everybody else has got to be at it. And if Willie's standards are at it, then everybody else has got to follow. And if you don't follow, this game's ruthless, isn't it? We've seen Willie Peters and yourself have had players and released players. Every Doro, for argument's sake, outstanding for OKR last year, been moved on, another player's brought in. There's no complacency whatsoever within that team, and I think it's headed by the head coach and filtered through the spine players and the senior players who are still very much leaders.
And you're right, Cookie. All too often in this game we talk about the squad, don't we? But we very rarely mention the coach and the job he's done. I mean, it must be a delight working with him.
Yeah, I often say that people review teams and they talk about the squad's ins and outs, but I think the most pivotal position in any squad is the guy that's picking and choosing the squad and the tactics, and the head coach. And I've said before, I think we've got a fantastic head coach. He doesn't miss a beat. He really don't miss a beat. And I've seen no change in any of the players or coach to suggest anything other than we'll be at it again. Totally recognising that I think some teams have really improved their squads next year. And I think it'll be, or this year, should I say, and I think it'll be an extremely competitive league this year.
It certainly will. It certainly will. Look, obviously, this Thursday night you've got to go to York and deal with a newly promoted. There'll be an atmosphere in over there at York for sure, won't they? I think their first time in top flight in 31 years or something like that. But then we move on to the big one. And that's not playing disrespect to York. Obviously, big game first of all, and then the game against the Brisbane Broncos, where hopefully Hull KR will go on and be crowned World Club champions. First of all, how proud are you to have Hull KR in that game?
Oh yeah, we're all immensely proud. Obviously, the first time for ourselves, but to keep it in the city was really a really big thing for us. Rugby League mad city. Who knows when there'll be another World Cup challenge in our city. Brisbane Broncos have been fantastic to deal with. They're taking it very seriously. This will be a top game.
Well, just on that, you said keeping it in the city. There's a couple of sort of comments that I've read along the way about your decision to move that game from Hull KR, from Craven Park over to the MKM. Whose decision was that?
It was the board, primarily mine, I think, and the board. It was a no-brainer. Really, it was a no-brainer in respect of the finances involved, and it's been proven by the fact that the MKM has sold out within a couple of weeks. So, and that's twice the size of our stadium. So the demand for tickets was there, and I think when you've got such a game like that, and you've got champions from both hemispheres playing each other, you want to take it to as big a stage as possible. Bearing in mind it was a Thursday night, so we didn't want to take it out of the city. We had the opportunity to take it to Leeds, but how many of our fans will go over to on a Thursday night? Kids, it's half term, so we took everything into account, and we're delighted it's sold out at MKM.
But is there not an argument for putting Reece Walsh, Pat Carrigan in the small changing rooms, making that atmosphere as uncomfortable as can be for the biggest night in Hull KR's history, to win that in their own backyard? Has the club, so what I'm trying to ask, Paul, is has the club then swapped pound signs for a chance of a legacy?
There's definitely a financial aspect to it, because would have lost money in the World Cup Challenge at our ground. Whereas we do make money at the MKM, absolutely, even though we're paying a stadium hire fee. But it's very difficult to make money in this sport, as everybody knows. So to have the biggest domestic league game in the world and to think you could lose money on it is really it's just crazy.
Is there an argument now to say Hull KR have outgrown Craven Park? And I know you've redeveloped the ground a hell of a lot since I played there, when it was a golf stand behind the sticks, which is now a lovely new stand. You've extended the east stand. You've extended it again with seating. You've put Craven Street in, which is fabulous, brilliant, by the way, a wonderful asset to Hull KR. Is there now an argument to say that you need to redevelop Craven Park even further to get more fans in?
Yeah, we absolutely do. We'll have a capacity of just over 12,000 this year. Yeah. It was just over 11,000 last year, so it's growing all the time. But it'll be sold out. And we've still got the opportunity. I think the ideal situation for ourselves is to get our stadium to a 14,000, 15,000 capacity, and I think be close to filling that most weeks.
Yeah, I think Hull KR deserve. I think the top team in our competition need that, don't we? We need to for as many people to see it, for the community of East Hull first and foremost, which I'm part of and I've lived a part of all my life. But for everybody to see that stadium bouncing and rocking, and for the best team in the country, I think to extend on that is huge for the club.
Obviously, you've said you've sold 26,000, so it's great that fans from not only Hull but from wider, I would imagine, they want to see the best players in town. What's the reaction been like from your core hardcore fan base moving the game over to the rival side of the?
They've been really good. Yeah, I can honestly say I haven't had a single phone call or a single email, not one. So I think they all understand. And also, we gave the opportunity for our season ticket base to all have the opportunity to buy up to 4 tickets. So they've all had the opportunity. Where without a doubt at Craven Park, Salt Group Craven Park, they wouldn't have had that opportunity.
Will the black and white fans get behind Hull KR for one night only?
No. Trust me, absolutely not. Listen, there'll have been a record number of Brisbane Broncos shirt sales in West Hull over the last month. Without a shadow of a doubt. No, if you don't live there, you don't understand it, Kyle. It's huge. And they'll want Brisbane to win. They won't want to see Hull KR with another trophy in the cabinet, and they won't want Hull KR to have another season of 2025 again in 26. The rivalry is that intense.
Well, we'll certainly know how many black and white supporters are in there if Brisbane were to score, and you'll hear a cheer or two, no doubt about it. Right, both of you really, I suppose. I'll start with you first. What have KR got to do to get over Brisbane in this game?
I think we've got to pretty much play error-free rugby. I think, it's going to be a Thursday night. I'm hoping the conditions are horrendous. I really am. Having said that, they're coming over 10 days earlier to acclimatise. So, look, they've got some absolute superstar players. But I think what we've got to do is we've just got to be us. We talk about internally the Hull KR way. I think a lot of people know that we pride ourselves on our defence and our work ethic and pinning teams down in their back 20. And, I think we've just got to be us and do that, but do that in an error-free rugby way to give ourselves a chance against what is an outstanding side.
Well, the outstanding side, definitely, but there's that, the one man who everybody will be there to see, Mr. Reece Walsh.
Yeah.
Okay, how can you stop him?
Well, with great difficulty, as we found out in the Ashes series. I think that's a big one for Brisbane. Is some of them have already acclimatised to some cold weather during the Ashes. They've gone back home and they've trained in the heat, obviously. But I read Petro Sevenasiva's quotes this week about how in 2007, when Saints beat them at Bolton, how it was difficult for them to acclimatise. And I think it always is for Australian or South, for people from the southern hemisphere to come over and acclimatise to the cold. That's one advantage that Hull KR have got if it's horrendous. I think the other advantage is Willie Peters again, who's had a foot in the Australian camp during the Ashes. So he understands Reece Walsh. He's worked with him for the last month, 6 weeks. But I agree with Paul in the fact that too many times we try and beat Australians the Australian way, and it never ever works because they're doing it week in, week out. We've got to play our own way. As a coach, Willie plays his own way. He plays his own style. The team defend really well. They kick really well. They wait for errors. The amount of games you go and watch Hull KR and the pin teams back in the 20, there's 3 or 4 you can see there's a conscious effort to restrict meters and restrict where they kick the ball before the ball gets to play 5, where on the field they kick the ball from the opposition team. So I think it's got to be the Hull KR way to beat Brisbane, and if you try and go the Brisbane way, you'll find that Brisbane will beat you. So it's going to be a fascinating game in 2 weeks' time, the World Club Challenge.
Yeah, well, look, the big games, they just keep on coming for the club, don't they? Yeah. Because then after that, you then got to deal with the little trip out to Vegas. Paul, are you concerned about the number? Well, I don't suppose you'd be concerned because you'd be welcoming it, I imagine, as a CEO. But for the group and for Willie Peters, what the size of the job that's coming in the next 3 weeks can't be undersold.
No, it's an incredible start that we have. We all know that. But I'll tell you what, we're so excited. We're so excited, and we won't swap it at any opportunity. So, of course, it's going to be tough. We play World Cup Challenge on Thursday night, and we're flying to Vegas on Sunday. for what is, of course, a league game. So ultimately, it's only 2 league points, at the end of the day. So, but a very important 2 league points is our home game. And, people talk about the Vegas experience. I'm yet to experience it, and I'm really looking forward to it. But, I'd happily settle for a pretty boring 4 or 5 days and come back with 2 points.
Yeah, how difficult is that going to be, the travel, particularly the travel? Then you're back for another league game against Huddersfield the following week. How difficult is it going to be to keep the players motivated in that way, in terms of you've got World Club Challenge, Vegas, all eyes on you, then you go to Huddersfield, which is not an easy place to go to in terms of an atmosphere. I think, with all due respect to Huddersfield in that big stadium, the players have got a hell of a job on to get up for every single one of them games.
Yeah, it's a great point Cookie makes, and I just want to pick up on it, and you do share or don't. Has the coaching staff and you guys as a board, have you planned or prepared or expecting a lull in 2026, given everything that's coming, that's on so early on in the season? Look, I'll read a quote from Elliot Minchella. We are hunting the same feelings as last year. We are good at taking it one game at a time. But the reality is, how could you look at this one game at a time? There's 3 huge games to come, and then there's the rigorous season of a Super League season. Has there been any talk about potentially a lull and what that may look like?
There's been no talk of a lull, but I think that you can't peak for 27 rounds. No. We need to peak early in rounds, in effect, rounds 2 and 3. So I understand your point, fully understand your point. We have been, genuinely, as boring as it sounds, we have been really good at taking one game at a time. And the lads really are good at that. But I understand your point. I think that our squad will be tested this year in terms of its depth, because we're going to need it. But in sport, you can look too far ahead, can't you? You can start worrying about where the lull's going to come, and then you end up missing out on being really good in the World Cup Challenge in Vegas. Let's just be really good in those two, because the way I see it is we're representing Super League, certainly in the World Club Challenge, and we're representing Super League in Vegas. So I think you genuinely have to take those 2 games as a hell of a 2 games, but we've got to take them in isolation, and then we've got to refocus back on the league.
To rewind on the Vegas one as well, you play a team in Leeds who arguably had the wood over you last year. In terms of the first game, I think Mikey Lewis turns it on for 12 minutes, I believe. And you come out on top at Headingley. They beat you at your place. Yeah. They then beat you later on in the season at Headingley again. And then lots of people predicted that if they beat St Helens, that the game of the playoff series would have been at home to Hull KR again, where Leeds, if they've been as good as they had been in the previous 3 games, could very much stop you going to Old Trafford. I think Leeds are a real danger to Hull KR. Mentality-wise, and because of their improvements in their squad for 26. So whilst Hull KR have got some big games, don't forget how big the game is for Leeds at Vegas as well, against which is the current champions.
And I cast my mind back to the last time you played each other. I think Leeds did a big number on you, didn't they? Yeah. And that's as good as I've seen the Rhinos play for probably 10 years, I would have thought. They were brilliant that day. But yeah, he's right. Leeds is going to be a challenge for you as well. The game, you're right. It is only 2 points, but they all add up. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, this fixture was put together nearly a year ago, and actually, we hadn't won anything at that time. I agree with you. I think Leeds Rhinos, will be right up there for all trophies this year. I really do. And so I think it's a humdinger of a game in Vegas. I really do. But it's our home game, and unlike previous years. In fact, I think last year was one of them. I think we had Leeds on a loop last year. This is our only home game against Leeds. We don't play them twice more. We only play them once more. So, we need to be aware of that. But I agree. I think Leeds will be a real danger this year.
Well, of course, 2026 saw some big changes, notably the 2 extra teams that are now into the competition. We've gone from 12 to 14, but there's also been some rule changes in there as well, Cookie, in particular around the ruck. I mean, do you see Super League becoming a more exciting game?
Well, I read some comments this week after the Challenge Cup, particularly I was at the game between Doncaster and Castleford, where lots of 6 agains was given. I think there's always a period at the beginning of every season, Kyle, where one rule gets picked on.
Yeah.
And then after 6 or 8 weeks, it sort of peters out a little bit. So there'll be some crackdowns, without a shadow of a doubt. The referees will crack down on some rule changes and some interpretations of rules. But again, I certainly believe that it's all subjective. One referee may referee it differently.
That's difficult.
So I've certainly been part of staffs, and last year as the Featherstone coach, where I had a member of staff, Dave Merrick, who was an ex-referee, who could give me the lowdown on each referee. So, you're going to get different policings of different rules. I think we've all just got to suck it a little bit and see how it goes and make our changes throughout the first 6 weeks of the season. But it's not always easy for players because it can become frustrating.
And fans as well,
and
though,
supporters.
Cookie, it's a 6 again. We're at a point now where sometimes you're right. If it's an interpretation, what's it been given for? One group of players who I certainly think would, and I wouldn't rule out a number 9 for the Man of Steel this year. In terms of those quick rucks and being able to jump on the front foot, are the hookers. And of course, I've got one of the very best in Jez Litton. He could certainly get excited about these new rule changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought, without a shadow of a doubt, I thought he was our best player in the Ashes series. I thought he had a fantastic series. That comes with Jez off the back of Mickey Mack not being at the club next year, where he'll be the main number 9 with somebody else underneath him as understudy. So I expect a big season from Jez. From what I've heard from in and around the city, obviously living there and being part of it, is Jez has grown into a leadership role as well. So I think there's an argument to say the quicker the game is, the better it is for quicker players, for quicker thinking players to get out of 9 or to get their hands on the ball. Your Mikey Lewis's or your Jake Connors again. So it's going to be an exciting season to see who comes out on top in the Man of Steel and who's in for the running. But I wouldn't argue against you, Kyle, that Jez Litton and co could very much be up there.
Yeah, for sure. Look, there was an independent review that was published, 144 recommendations, I think there was. And one of those was about potentially the move into an 8-team playoff. So effectively, you could finish in the bottom half of the table and be in the playoffs. I don't like that idea. Paul, do you share any concerns about?
I don't like it. It was muted for the season just gone, and I personally was quite vocal against it. I just don't. If you come in 8th place, you're likely to have lost more than you've won.
Yeah,
and I don't know how you reward that. So I get the point where it might go to 7 at the halfway. It's a 14-team league, 7 teams, but I think 8 is a step too far. I don't think any team who's lost more than the 1 should expect to be in the playoffs neither.
And talking about expanding, there is talk about the competition potentially expanding again. It's up to 16 teams potentially. Surely there just isn't the player pool.
Well, I think from that point of view, Kyle, London possibly will be ready in a year's time. I thought the game against Bradford at the weekend was a decent contest again. Ran out of some players at the end of the game, London, with the changes and HIAs and everything else. But you would have thought with investment, London will be there or thereabouts. But then where does the player pool come from then? And it'll be interesting to see how 2026 goes with Toulouse, Bradford and York going up and how they fare, because it's not championship. And the difference between top-level championship and bottom-level or mid-table Super League is insurmountable. Until you've been in that and experienced it. So that'll give us an indication as the player pool big enough then for an expansion. But I certainly echo and share both your thoughts on an 8-team playoffs. We're rewarding mediocrity. We're allowing a mediocre team to be able to buy a lottery ticket to go to the grand final. And I don't think you should be able to buy that when you've won less games than you've lost, if that makes sense. So, I don't agree with the 8 teams. If you go to 16 and it's 8, if the player pool's still not big enough, you're still rewarding an 8th place team when the player pool isn't big enough, and 3 or 4 clubs at the bottom have been pumped most weeks. So we're still rewarding mediocrity in that way. So, I'm not keen on an 8-team playoff series. That is for sure.
Paul, would you like to see London in the mix in 2027?
I would.
Yeah,
I would. Yeah, they've obviously got good backers. I think it's probably the best chance London have ever had to really establish themselves. I think if they can, it's great for the sport to have a capital city side. My personal take on it, and it is only my personal take on it, is that when you look at, York and Toulouse that have come up on less distribution money than the other 12, I don't see how it would be fair to even possibly look to relegate either of those two. I think we should keep it to the 14 and bring London in and go to 15. No disrespect to anybody else, I don't see a 16th team for some time now. Not currently from the Championship anyway. So I wouldn't be against it going to 15 teams and having a bye week. You know, obviously the NRL have bye weeks. I think it's really important in the schedule that the squads get a week off. I think that's probably one way of doing it.
That's a really great point, that, isn't
You
it?
play whatever talking.
A bye week, you know, you think about the players' schedule now and the way the game's going, and with these ruck interpretations, it's going to be quicker, so there's going to be more demand on players' bodies and stuff. I like that idea.
You know, we're talking about player welfare. Then there's an argument to say we're helping the players with the welfare. We're giving them a chance to get away for 4 or 5 days with the families, and rest and recharge and come back firing. So the end of the game, end of the season games are the pinnacle and the peak of our sport, watched by the most and played by the best teams, who are fresher. So I agree with Paul. I like the idea. I like the idea a lot.
You know, we've gone to 14 teams to remove the loop fixtures. Which are, you know, you look at the fixtures and it does look far more settled and fair, just simply home and away games. The last thing we need to do is start adding more loops in. But I think London, if they prove to be the team that we all think they'll be in the Championship this year, I think they'll be a really good addition. And like I say, I think that gives everybody the opportunity to still play home and away and probably a magic weekend, but give people a week off.
And just on London, another one of the recommendations is Wembley. The Challenge Cup final being at Wembley. It's sad to say, because as a player, you always want to have the opportunity. Part of the carrot of getting to the Challenge Cup final is you get to walk out at your national stadium. Given all the teams that have done it previously, you feel part of that club, don't you, if you want to call it that. However, we saw it in the Ashes. It was flat. It wasn't a good watch, was it? I mean, has the Challenge Cup outgrown in terms of it being at Wembley? Does it need to be taken somewhere else?
I think from a player's point of view, and I'll say this as a player, you want to play at Wembley, as you've just said, and you know, climbing the stairs and lifting the cup on you know, when you've climbed the stairs and you climb back down. But then you look at it from a marketing side and a commercial side, where you've got not enough people in that stadium. You know, not enough people. The top tier not open. You know, I think that the Old Trafford final, is the atmosphere there is far greater than it would be at a Wembley for a Challenge Cup final. I don't know how you feel about that, Paul, given your team played in both last year. What would your preference be?
Well, I think it's a topic that will always divide. I think there'll always be those, the traditionalists that like Wembley. But having done the Challenge Cup final 2 of the last 3 years, I think one of the things about it from a fan's perspective is it's so expensive.
Yeah,
it's so expensive to go down there. You travel, your tickets, your accommodation. You know, London is not a cheap place to stay overnight, and I think that is definitely one of the reasons why you see that top tier empty. Yeah. And I do think when you sat there and you look around, you do feel that, you know, this is such a, you know, pinnacle game in our season, and you're in a stadium that's 2/3 full. It doesn't feel right.
Well, that's all we've got time for here on episode 1 of season 2 of Bat 10. My thanks to Paul Cook and Paul Lakin, whose side Hull KR will feature in the very first game of season 2026 as they take on York Knights. After that, stay tuned, because the Hull KR documentary, Paul, is showing first episode 1. Hull KR Renaissance. So stay tuned, make sure you watch that. And of course, we here at Bat 10 wish you, Hull KR, and the British Super League all the very best for the World Club Challenge. And then you trip out to Vegas. Brilliant. All happening. Thanks for your time. I'll catch you next week. Cheers. Bye now.